Hello and welcome to the Blue Shadow Podcast. My name is Joey, and today I'm excited to discuss Star Wars Legacy of Vader, issue number 2. This issue is written by Charles Soule, and the artist is Luke Rost, with the colorist being Nolan Woodward. And just a little bit of background, this is the second issue of the comic that's focusing on Kylo Ren, during the time immediately after The Last Jedi, in between The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi, and particularly with a focus on him trying to retrace the steps of Darth Vader. The first issue I reviewed with that video podcast episode is also up, so please consider giving that a look. But I do want to reiterate, especially if this is your first time listening to the Blue Shadow Podcast, is that I am a big fan of the sequels, and I think that anything more we can do to flesh them out, especially something like this, is an absolutely amazing opportunity. So I've really enjoyed the first issue, and I'm looking forward to continuing on. But this issue is really interesting because it's kind of a transitionary issue. And I guess I should say before I dive into it, this is a spoiler warning for the issue and the comic before it. So definitely recommend reading it. So if you haven't read it, feel free to go do that and then come on back. But we left off the last issue with Kylo Ren meeting Vinay, one of Darth Vader's attendants, who is still alive in a weird robot head kind of thing. And they headed to Tatooine so that Kylo Ren could learn more about Anakin Skywalker's past experiences and how he derived his strength from his pain. And some interesting things that we, kind of get here. And again, this is a transitionary issue kind of getting us from story beat to story beat. And there's a lot of cool individual moments that I kind of want to talk about. But largely, he's kind of talking about how Tatooine is where Anakin was born, where he was into slavery, where he was forced into slavery, and where he also had some triumphs, like meeting the Jedi Order and winning the pod race. But it's all kind of laced within the idea of Vinay finding Palpatine's records, and that's how he learned all this stuff about Anakin. But they ultimately go to the pod racing track, and he sees that Anakin Skywalker had won, and Kylo Ren is just kind of like, angry about the Jedi, hearing Vinay talk about it. And while they're at the pod racer track, Vinay makes a really interesting comment and says, I'm sure you can relate, Kylo Ren. You're also very powerful. I would guess that from your earliest days, you too walked a path of pain. And that cuts to one of my favorite pages of this book and of the series thus far. And it's just a bunch of really happy memories of Ben from his youth. You see him with Han and Leia. You see him with Han and Lando, training with Luke, riding on Chewie's back. Kind of like a family dinner, drawing on R2 and 3PO and flying the Falcon. It just are these little pieces of his memories, and you can kind of start to understand that he and Vader are different. And even though he wants to put on that mask, literally or metaphorically, he is not that, and that kind of leads to, his eventual turn. But there's a pretty cool scene in between when he has those memories and when we get to kind of the next part of it, where some people come and try to rob him, and he has a pretty cool little scene where he, kind of turns on them. And then we start to have Kylo and Vinay investigate, Anakin's path into slavery. We learn that Darth Vader did not kill Watto, even though Kylo might have thought so. But we learn that prior to Watto, Gardulla the Hutt was the one who actually enslaved Anakin. And so he was going to find Gardulla. And there's a very cool panel in this book that kind of mirrors the Tatooine sunset and the motorcycle, speeder bike kind of riding that Anakin had when he was going to kill the Tuskens. It's very, very reminiscent of that, which I thought was really cool. But we also see Vinay kind of updating the Gardulla's people, saying Kylo's coming and he seems ready and angry. And this kind of, we're not quite 100% sure what's going on there, so it could be that he's like testing Kylo, making sure he's worthy of Vader's name and, that kind of stuff. But that's kind of where I'm going with it. Not that he's trying to, take Kylo down, but Kylo has a really cool fight where he fights 2 Rancors, takes down Gardulla's guards, and then he makes it into Gardulla's palace, where Gardulla doesn't really know who he is, and he's not taking him very seriously. And Kylo kind of starts to fight off the guards, Gardulla's guards, but we find this strange force creature. I really am unsure exactly what it is. It's kind of like, it's even so hard to describe. It's got giant black eyes. It looks like a frog with no mouth, and it's like lumpy and white. And Gardulla then realizes that he says he came because of his grandfather's story, and he thought he could kill the past. And then we end up with Kylo Ren in chains, beaten, and kidnapped to be continued. So I thought the story of this issue was really interesting and kind of really... one of my favorite things about it is that it places Kylo Ren, a main sequel character, in the context of the past. I think a lot of... Well, there's familiar vehicles, familiar characters. A lot of the stuff that took place in the sequels were on new worlds and, away from where the action had previously happened, with the exception of Jakku. But seeing Kylo Ren in these iconic locations, talking to Gardulla the Hutt, learning about the pod racing and the slavery and walking around Tatooine is just a really, really exciting concept to me. And again, while this issue gave us little bits and pieces of lots of really interesting things, it, like I said, was kind of a transitionary issue. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next issue, that is Legacy of Vader number 3. And the little blurbs that it gives you at the back of the book says that Kylo Ren has been imprisoned by the ruthless Gardulla the Hutt. The young tyrant must survive the harsh conditions of his grandfather, Darth Vader's homeworld, and who is the mysterious Force user in Gardulla's employ. So I am certainly looking forward to that. If you are as well, please let us know what you are thinking might happen. What's the deal with this weird Force user? I'm quite intrigued by both its appearance, its species. We've never seen anything like it in Star Wars, but what did you think? Because I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next issue. And with that, this quick episode, just wanted to give some quick thoughts on this really exciting issue. This is exciting, whole series. But with that, we thank you for your time, for listening. We really hope you enjoyed it. Consider giving us a review, a subscription, like or comment on YouTube or the podcast platform of your choice. Consider giving us a follow on Twitter or X at Blue Shadow Pod, or on Instagram at Blue Shadow Podcast. With that, we thank you again, and we will see you next time.